What's going on, my broskiis? My name is Toadskii, back again here with another One Piece Treasure Cruise video, and once again we're here with Grand Party, and this is day 4, so we've got one more day to go, and unfortunately we do make a bit of a misstep in this video, where in the second match you'll see that things don't go in our favor, but either way, we have our first one here. This is my 9th win heading into my 10th win, so we can still view 2 of the 3 teams, which is nice. But of course, moving into 10 wins and onwards, things get much more difficult from there, especially in this season where the int-driven team is as powerful as what it is, and there aren't too many teams that can really combat that. At least consistently combat the int-driven team. But we saw this team here as it is going to be a strength team. It felt pretty comfortable using a quick team against it, once again, considering that most of the good characters that are on a quick team are also driven, so they're going to be receiving some pretty decent buffs overall. And of course, this is against a Roger GP leader, and I try to avoid them as much as possible because the Roger burst skill is just way too strong. But of course, you get into a situation where you can't really do too much about that. You're going to have to deal with what you get given. And unfortunately, we do have to deal with Roger, but luckily for us, it doesn't actually end up mattering that much. And you see that, it hasn't even been 30 seconds into the game, and the opponent's entire front line has been completely wiped out. And that's the power of the quick team at the moment versus the strength team. It just works so well. The opponent does opt for the Roger skill right before before their team goes down. And at this point, it's actually really good for us because my Roger GP burst hasn't been charged yet. So the fact that they have applied half stats and then they're going to be launching some specials against us, allowing us to charge up the GP burst just a little bit. And I'm not really too concerned about losing because we have a very good bench that needs to come in as well. And he doesn't even end up knocking out the characters that are big damage dealers. So we're looking pretty good right now anyways. But then we get to move into the second match where, of course, we're going to be having our Roger GP burst ready to go. And I believe it was a Dex team that we come up against for the second game. And for this one, I opted to use my Psy team against it. And I felt like, if worse comes to worse, I've got my Dex team at the end, potentially going up against the unknown squad. So we have our Psy team here versus Dex, and it actually works out pretty well for us as well. Of course, when you have a really strong Psy team here with the Roger GP burst, it works out pretty well. You do see with this team that we have changed the Psy team very slightly, where we've put Rebecca Toy Soldier on the bench, and we've added some low-cost characters just to fill out the squad. And then we've also added Kuzan on the front line, and while Kuzan doesn't receive all of the buffs on the team due to the fact that Odin only really buffs free spirit characters, what Kuzan's Rumble ability provides for the rest of the other side characters on our crew, plus with Kuzan's Rumble special, it's incredibly powerful. That works well against most matchups, really. And if you do happen to come up against any strength or int characters, Kuzan's additional debuffs to those characters are incredibly strong, giving them defense down and special CT decrease. And you do see here in this match that the opponent does go for the Roger burst, which does fully charge our Roger burst, so I opted to just use mine straight away to mitigate the burst that they have. And look, we do still have 1 charge left on our Roger burst, so even if we do lose the matchup, Roger burst will be ready, and we can have it ready for the final battle if we do need to get down to that. But luckily for us, the Psy team is able to handle the opponent's Dex team. So I'll leave you guys with this, and we'll pick things up in the second game. So moving into the second game here of, or the second match of the video, and I felt again, pretty comfortable in just utilizing the Dex mirror match here. However, one thing I didn't really account for was the Roger bursts. Those they're gonna definitely change the tides of matches, and I do speed up this clip here because the Dex matchups do go for quite a long time, so I've sped it up to 2 times speed just to make it go a bit quicker. In hindsight, I don't really know what I could have done differently, potentially switching out Brook for something else. I don't really know exactly like what was the main reason as to why I lost this game in particular. I did end up using the Roger burst a lot earlier than I really would have hoped, so it could have potentially just been the way that I used my Roger burst. It could have been the team build. You know, obviously I could have had instead of using Brook, I could have switched him out for a Rumble Rare Recruit, and instead of having the low cost characters on the bench which don't really provide much, I could have just opted to have all the Rumble Rare Recruits instead. That's probably where the downfall began, because you know, especially when you're up against opposing Rogers where they can just help wipe out your team, having characters that can come off of the bench and actually still pose a bit of a threat to the opponent's side of the field is probably what you want to do. Despite the fact that Brook's healing mechanics that he does have for our squad are really useful, but of course slashers being debuffed with their special CT this season means that Brook's special does not launch as often as you would really like, so that really does hurt us a little bit there. But anyways, you know, not really too much to talk about there. Obviously we lose this one, and I felt like, well, you know, we're going to have a Roger burst at least somewhat ready to go for the final game, at least for game 2, but then you guys are going to see how that one actually goes as well. So you do see the opponent uses their Roger burst, and at this point I didn't really see much of a way to win this game. We do get the little bit of heal from Brook, but the fact that the opponent does still have their Sober Mask and it does crazy good damage towards us. They still have their Doflamingo, but it was time up, and unfortunately I did just lose due to the time. But even if there was like another 30 seconds or something, I think I probably still would have lost that game just due to the personnel that the opponent's team had on their side. Anyways, we move into the second game here where I'm using my side team, and I believe this was an unknown team, and it ended up being Int and Driven. So I was pretty scared immediately heading into this, as I already know how good the Int and Driven team are in this season in particular. So I do have my Roger Burst essentially ready to go. I do need to take a bit of damage in order for that to activate, but of course this is it, right? If I don't win this game, I straight up just lose a match. So I need to go balls to the wall, try and be as safe, I guess, as possible. So once that burst is ready, I'm going to use it straight away to mitigate damage from the opponent, as well as allowing us to do more damage towards them. And to be honest, things just don't go well. I mean, we get a pretty good RNG with Roger going first to provide some stat reduction to them, which is good. Kuzan also applying further stat reduction and CT reduction, so things are looking pretty good. You see the Law coming in, and then you have Yamato come in, and she does half stats to Broggy and even hits Broggy, and even with half stats and the hit from Yamato, it still isn't enough to knock him down. So when I saw that, I knew for sure I wasn't going to win this game. And you see Odin, he does finally knock out the Broggy, so Broggy doesn't launch a special, but Smoker comes in with his CT, and he's able to launch a special against us, which can special bind some of our characters. And of course, you know, we're not looking good right now. The opponent does have their GP burst, and here's the Kid special, which does a lot of damage and also special binds the Law. I end up going for the GP burst, but the opponent does have their GP burst as well, so it's just going to straight up mitigate what we are trying to do here. So now it gets back to a level playing field where the opponent has their int-driven team versus us, and you see, you know, Uta of course is going to do super good damage towards us. Not getting any knockouts with that Uta, but then here comes the Smoker. So the special bind once again on Law. I mean, Law isn't really a big damage dealer anyway, so that doesn't really matter in the long run, but damage is damage, right? See, the Blackbeard is actually knocked out from the Rebecca Toy Soldier. We're getting further debuffs, but it just looks like a lost cause at this point, and plus they still have their GP burst ready to go, and basically whenever they launch that GP burst, I know I'm going to lose. So I'm really hoping that they don't activate it, because that will give us a bit of a chance to win. Odin does launch his special here. It does good damage, gets some knockouts, so 7v3, it's looking good up until the opponent uses their burst, and at that point, yeah, it's just GG, because we've only got like really low cost support characters coming in their place. You know, I don't really know, again, what much else I could have done in this situation. You know, I guess it is what it is, right? Either way, we ended up losing this one, and that puts us automatically at a maximum cap of 14 potential wins in this season of Grand Party, unfortunately. So we'll pick things up with the final game. Okay, so we move into the final game of the video as we have once again our Roger team versus an opponent's Int Uta team. I do challenge this one though because we know that the second team is the Int driven team, we know that the first team is going to be the quick team, so it makes a lot of sense that the final team is probably going to be a side team. You could make a pretty good guess that that's going to be the case. But, you know, I feel pretty comfortable, you know, using this Dex team versus the Quick team. Didn't feel, you know, like I needed to change anything, even though it did lose in the Dex mirror match. Versus Quick, there's not too many things that can really happen that could cause you to lose this game. But then we move into, obviously, the one after this, which is a kind of an interesting situation where we go up against the Int-driven team. We know it's the Int-driven team. And I just felt like I was just going to throw the match, you know, using my side team against it. Just see what happens, right? And you guys are going to see what happened because from what happened during the second game of this match, I felt like there was no way it was going to win. But you guys are going to see some crazy stuff happen. Either way, you see that the way that this Dex team is going to work. I did also double the speed of this one because, you know, Dex take quite a long time to get their stuff going. Of course, they launch their specials very quickly, the quick-driven team, but we're able to tank the hits and then deal enough damage back. Of course, Blackbeard being a huge asset against Quick in these matchups due to the health cut, the fixed damage, and the defense down. We do have the Roger GP burst ready to go, which definitely helps out, but you guys are going to see some pretty funky stuff that happens in the next game, which is just super wild. As, you know, when I move into this matchup, and you just see what happens, I don't even use the Roger burst at all, and the really interesting thing is that when my V2 Odin first activates with the Psy team versus Int, he completely whiffs. He doesn't hit a single target. And at that point I knew that I was not going to win the game. So I opted to skip the matchup entirely. And yeah, you guys are going to see exactly what happens there. So we win the first game, we move into this one, and this one I was just thinking that I'm going to throw the match, and then we're going to save, you know, 2 Roger bursts for my Dex team versus whatever the last team was going to be. And yeah, things just get absolutely wild. I end up skipping the match, as I said, and it ended up winning. So I don't really understand how, you know, we have this team, we have multiple Roger bursts, and we didn't win the previous matchup, but then this time around didn't use the GP burst at all, and it was still able to win. And V2 Odin whiffed on his first activation, so that's just the RNG of Grand Party, like in a nutshell, and that just shows you exactly what you can expect. Both the positives and negatives of Grand Party Pirate Rumble. It's just absolutely wild. Anyways, I'll leave you guys with the rest of this clip, and we'll pick things up with the final day, Grand Party, day number 5 tomorrow. Wishing you guys the best of luck in your Grand Party matches. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it, and if you guys did, make sure to go ahead and leave a like. Other than that, I'll catch you guys within the next video.